deep, so that works for you. You didn't wear your boots. Outstanding. Let me get my little thing working here. Let's say again. Oh yeah, my life is so much easier now, right? When it works. My dad used to say that he would call, back in the early days of, when we were all still figuring out this personal computer thing. You would call the support hotline to figure out what was wrong with your computer. And he said a couple of times, the support technician that he called said, "Sir, I think what's going on is it's an ID10T problem." My dad said, "What's an ID10T problem?" And the man said, "Write it down, sir." Can you see it in your brain? ID10T, idiot. It's an idiot problem. Yes. My technology is only as smart as the guy using it, right? Well, you'll see on your docket that our title, and up here, our title for today, wow. I guess I get to speak on whatever I want to now. I'm going to lay it on thick. The title of my presentation today is The Open Source Church, a Way Forward. The background of that is, and I feel foolish doing this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I wrote a book that came out about a year ago called The Open Source Church, Making Room for the Wisdom of All. It was published by Alban, the Alban Institute, in April. And so it has become a way that I have thought about the church. So let me give you a little background about me real quick before we do this. And I promise, I hope to not talk at you terribly long, because what I'm more interested in is what you all talk to one another about regarding this when we move to our small groups. So, I wasn't always Presbyterian. In fact, I only became Presbyterian about 12 years ago. I officially became a Presbyterian when I joined the congregation in Lawrence. I grew up as a part of what I call the fundagelical churches, the fundamentalist evangelical churches, specifically charismatic fundagelical churches. If you're flipping through cable and you see Benny Hinn, do you know who Benny Hinn is? Yeah, my dad raised money for Benny Hinn. That's the world that I came out of. Pat Robertson, Oral Roberts, that's my world. They think I'm weird that I'm a Presbyterian, frankly. So I was that most of my life, and then as the family press release goes, at one point in time, my family prayed to God and said, "God, we would be happy to go and serve you anywhere as long as it's not Africa." And so to their minds, this is the official family press release, to their minds they got sent to the next worst place in their minds, and that was the Southern Baptist Church. So my formative years were as a Southern Baptist. Wearing the robe is very difficult for me. I don't like it. That's why I don't stand in a pulpit. I'm used to the all around and the whole 9 yards. You're starting to catch that flavor. I was a Southern Baptist through most of growing up until I graduated high school. Then I'm a graduate of Sterling College in Sterling, Kansas. And like most college students, I didn't go to church. So I was a Presbyterian by default because Sterling is Presbyterian. Then I met a nice Presbyterian girl, and we got married. So I was Presbyterian by marriage. And then upon joining the First Presbyterian Church in Lawrence, Kansas, I became what I refer to as a born-again Presbyterian. Right? You gotta bring it with you. I'm a born-again. It is an oxymoron, absolutely. We're changing that. I actually just learned 51% of Presbyterians were not born Presbyterians. How many of you were not born a Presbyterian? Yeah, I mean, we make great Presbyterians, don't we, folks? Right? And as a result, I'm a zealot. Like, I love the Presbyterian Church. I love who we are. I love the Book of Order. I love meetings. I think it's fantastic. I'm a church geek. I mean, what can I say? Church geek is a label that I wear very, very proudly. I have worked with Methodists and Anglicans, all sorts of Baptist, non-denominational folks. I've thought about being all of those things. When I was ordained after seminary, I was ordained to work for a nonprofit doing interfaith work, but it was housed in the Catholic Cathedral of the Archdiocese of Louisville. I worked in the Archbishop's house. I love, the thing that I love is wherever I go, I notice that, maybe you've noticed this too, God gathers women and men together and says, hey, you're going to be my people. I mean, isn't that incredible? There is something remarkable that happens when the people of God, the people that God has gathered, acknowledge we are the people of God. When we acknowledge that, I don't know, it's something magical. I like it, the only word I got is magical. Something magical happens. It is powerful. Church is incredible. Church is incredible. But as much as I love the church, I've got a problem with my personality. I wouldn't go so far as to say I'm a contrarian. I'm not a contrarian, but I'm one of those kinds of people, maybe you know this kind of person, maybe you are. I'm one of those kinds of people that I like the potential of something far more than I like its present reality. Yeah? This is why my wife loves me. She likes my potential far more than my present reality. It's a long project, is what it is. I never take something that's handed to me at face value. I never just accept something because I can always see a way that we can do this better. I can always see a way that we can be more faithful. This whole notion of the Reformed tradition, you know, God making us more and more into the likeness of Christ, that jazzes me because there's this whole notion that we are, even if in small increments, doing it a little bit better every single day. I love the idea of making something better. And so when I take this church that I love, and specifically this denomination that I love, and pair that up with my personality type, what you get is you get a guy who honestly is a loyal critic. I'm a loyal critic of our church. I think that we can do better. I really do. I think we do well. I mean, come on, the Presbyterian Church has done some incredible things in the name of Jesus Christ, even recently, right? I mean, today we were talking about PDA. Come on, we do that good, don't we, right? We do some incredible, but we can always do better. And so in my brain, I'm always thinking, how do we do this? How do we do this just a little bit better? How can we be, as best as we can discern, just a little more faithful tomorrow to God than we were today? Let me tell you about another piece of who I am before we get into this other stuff. It leads into this other stuff. I'm also a software geek. I'm a computer geek. I mean, you notice that, right? I mean, I've got this thing right here. I'm 35 years old. Technology is just the way that I operate in the world. I chuckle, alternate between chuckle and getting annoyed when people try to give me detailed directions to their house. I'm like, just give me your address, I'll type it into my phone. I'm fine, right? The mobile internet was made for me. I love it. I tell my grandfather that I operate a web browser the way that he opens the refrigerator. It's just that natural. It is the way that I live my life. When I was in 5th grade, I invented the internet. Yeah, not former Vice President Nobel laureate Albert G. Gore. No, I invented the internet. I had boxes, and I drew a computer monitor and drew the keyboard, and I was chatting with people all around the world. I did it. I invented it. This is the soup that I eat. This is the water in which I swim. And so one of the things that I like about technology is that technology lets me do things that I would not ordinarily do. If you're familiar with the media theorist Marshall McLuhan says that technology and media is an extension of your body parts. And so being able to chat with someone, being able to text message with someone, that's an extension of my mouth. Chris and I can talk even though we're not actually talking. It's remarkable. I love this stuff. But there are people in life who like to lock down technology and who like to lock down information technology. This week we had a huge thing, if any of you followed it, this Stop Online Piracy thing, and they protect, that stuff is a load of crud. Just take it from me right now. That stuff is a load of crud. And what we were doing is we were having a discussion about freedom. We were having a discussion about how technology works and how we want to interact with technology. As you can tell, I fall down on one side of that discussion. Let me tell you the two different sides, because they definitely lead into this notion of the open source church. Because one side would be considered, and this is the side I consider myself to be on. You can disagree with me if you want, but this is the side I consider myself to be on. One side is open, and one side is closed. I'm sorry, you guys are always the bad guys. You all get to be open. Sorry, they were tyrants, you get to be closed. Open and closed. I'm going to forget because I always do this. There's open and there's closed. Open source comes from the catchphrase, or the name open source code. Please don't let your eyes glaze over. I'm not going to do this to you for an hour. Okay? I'm just giving you enough so that we get the concept. Source code. Source code is a software way to talk about the instructions that a computer program uses to tell the computer how to run it. Are we clear? Okay? Source code. When you hear source code, think instructions, computer instructions. Now, if we're going to talk about open source code, we're talking about source code. We're talking about instructions that anybody gets to look at. Everyone gets to have access to. And if you know the computer language that source code is written in, you can also edit those instructions and make that program do something different. Okay? Any of you who use the Firefox web browser, you know, they have all those add-ons and all those. Those are ways that people have edited all of that source code to make it work. So in open source code, anybody can look at those instructions, anybody can edit them, anybody can have access to them, anybody can do whatever they want to do with them. On the other side, there are closed source code, closed source information. And in closed source information, a small group of people gets to have access. A small group of people gets to see the code. A small group of people know how to write that particular computer language. A small group of people get to decide what that particular computer program does. To contrast the Firefox web browser, think about Internet Explorer or Safari from Macintosh. Okay? As much as we like Apple, they are evil. Read my lips. No new iPhones. Okay. Thank you. That was good fun. I'm sure you can see how we could get a little bit of a parallel with church. We've been to those kinds of churches, or in those kinds of church experiences that we would consider open, right? That we would consider open. Everyone kind of has access to what's going on. Everyone has a say in what's going on. You can get in there and you can mess with it and you can make it work the way that you want and or need it to work. At our best, Presbyterians are open, right? Would you agree with me? At our best, we are open. We are often not at our best, but at our best, we are open. I like to say that the Presbyterian Church has a leg up on everybody else in moving in to the next iteration of what God is calling us to, because at our best, we are open people. We are open people. Everybody gets a say. All are welcome, right? All are welcome at Christ's table. This is what we say. But we've also been in those churches or those church experiences, some of them Presbyterian, that we would consider to be closed, right? A relatively few people, a relatively small number of people are in charge. A relatively small number of people have a say. They get to decide what we do. They get to decide the way that this program does or does not work. And if you try to mess with that program, then they're going to call you a pirate, right? Or a hacker or something, right? Because that's not the way that we do it. My friend Carol Howard Merritt, you may know her from her book Tribal Church and Reframing Hope. She talks about the unwritten rules that we have in churches, right? Who gets to decide some of those rules? This discussion of openness, however, is not, this is not something that we are learning from the software community, because I want to say that this discussion of openness really is inherent to who we are as Christians. It is inherent to who we are as Christians. Let me get to it this way. When the software community talks about openness, they're talking about two kinds of things. They talk about it in two different ways. They talk about openness in terms of freedom Freedom as in gratis, G-R-A-T-I-S, for those of you taking notes, and freedom as in libre, L-I-B-R-E, libre. This is the way they talk about it. When they talk about free as in gratis, they often use the catchphrase free as in beer, as in I'm giving you free beer. But we're standing in a church sanctuary, so we're not going to talk about beer already. No, we're going to talk about coffee instead. I am not a morning person. I'm not a morning person at all. Last night I drove from Liberty, Missouri to Abilene, Kansas, and I stayed at the Holiday Inn Express. And I didn't sleep terribly well because I never sleep well the first night that I'm away from my family. And so I got a relatively little amount of sleep. And so when I woke up this morning, I was cranky. But I walked downstairs, and there in the lobby was a continental breakfast, and would you guess what I found at the continental breakfast? A cup of coffee. That's exactly right. I found a cup of the nectar of the gods right here. Now, I didn't have to pay for that cup of coffee. Yeah, an argument could be made. I paid for a hotel room, blah, blah, blah. I didn't have to pay for this cup of coffee, all right? I didn't have to pay for the cup of coffee. It was gratis. It was given to me freely. It was mine. Does that mean that this cup of coffee does not have any value? Oh, for a cranky non-morning person, a cup of coffee has an immense amount of value. All that it meant was that I didn't have to pay for it. That's all that it meant. Free as in gratis. On the other hand, we talk about free as in libre. Freedom, freedom. As United States Americans, this is what we think of when we think about freedom. Okay? From the moment that we could understand the fact that we lived in the United States of America, we understood that we were free to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. We understood that we can do and say and be anything we want to do and say and be as long as it doesn't infringe upon your right and your ability to do and say and be whatever you want to do and say and be. Does that sound like a good thumbnail of who we as Americans understand ourselves? The discussions that we have, the arguments that we have between the quote left and the quote right is really just an argument about where we're going to draw the line on those kinds of freedom discussions. That's really all, I think that's really all we're arguing about. How much are we going to let people either get away with in one instance, or how much are you going to let me express myself in another instance? That's really all we're arguing about. This is the notion of freedom that the software folks talk about when they talk about freedom as libre. But like I said, I don't think that this is unique to software folks. I think this is woven into the DNA of what it means to be a Christian. Martin Luther, the great Reformation theologian, wrote a tract called The Freedom of the Christian. It was alternately published under a title, Christian Liberty. That's another way that you can find it. And in it, Luther says two things that I find to be incredibly profound. Luther says this. He's working off two twin ideas, and he names them very, very quickly in his monograph. He says, the Christian is the perfectly free Lord of all, subject to none. Kind of sounds at odds with the Mark passage we read, didn't it? Christian is the perfectly free Lord of all, subject to none. But then Luther also says the Christian is the perfectly dutiful servant of all, subject to all. What Luther wants to say is this. Luther is a good Reformation theologian. In that, what he's saying is there is absolutely nothing we can or have to do in order to earn the grace and peace of Jesus Christ. Not a thing. My congregation in Liberty, I would often say, we don't choose God, and the congregation would respond, God chooses us. There's nothing we can do about it. When kids would come into confirmation, I would say, welcome to brainwashing. God loves you. Get over it. I mean, really, there's nothing we can... Is the water in here? There was water in here. God loves you. It's okay. God loves you. God loves you. You get it for free. Get over it. There's nothing you can do about it. As such, there's nothing you got to do or say or be to earn the favor of God. There's nothing you got to do or say or be in order to be seen as the scriptures say it, blameless before the throne. There's nothing you got to do. Christ did that for, with, and in us. There's nothing we have to do. Therefore, we are the perfectly free Lord of all. We're subject to none. We don't have to do anything. On the other hand, Luther says, we have two natures. These are his words. I don't know that I necessarily see or agree with exactly where he's going, but he says we have two natures. One is spiritual and the other is bodily. This is the way that he wants to talk about it. He says that while spiritually we are perfectly free and Jesus and all the good stuff, in bodily, he says in our bodily nature, we tend more to line up with Paul in the 7th chapter of Romans, where Paul says, why am I doing things that I don't want to do? Why am I doing things that I don't want to do? And the things that I do want to do, I don't do those either. What is wrong with me, is basically what Paul is saying. What is the problem? I can't seem to get this thing moving right. And so what Luther says is that we have to do things in order to get our bodily nature in line with our spiritual nature. And the thing that we do in order to get our bodily nature in line with our spiritual nature is we give ourselves away to one another. That whole servant-slave thing we were talking about earlier, we give ourselves away. Can you see the gratis and libre here? In one instance, we are free as in libre. We are free. Free as in speech. We don't have to do, say, or be anything. Because Christ loves us. End of discussion. On the other hand, we have to be gratis. We have to give ourselves away. This is what we do. This is the way we are. It is not so among you. This is the way that we act. This is the way we give ourselves away. So here's what I wanted to ask. Here's the question that I wanted to ask. We're not Christians by ourselves, right? You can't be a Christian by yourself. God calls you into community. We are, well, we said it today during the installation of the moderator and vice moderator. We are the body of Christ and individually members of it. But we ourselves are not the body of Christ. We are members of the body of Christ. So we don't do this by ourselves. We don't do gratis and libre by ourselves. We do it with other people. That's what God intends. That's why God calls together this magnificent thing called the church. The question that I wanted to ask is, does the open source world and the open source thinking have anything to say to us about church? Does it have anything to say to us about church? And the way that I tried to get into this is I wanted to ask a question. Is there a community who understands itself as an open community? And if there is there anything about that community that could be instructive for us? Yes, I found one, and yes, I think that there is much that is instructive. And so that's what I want to spend the rest of my time with you today talking about, is just giving you some foundational pieces about this community, and then I'm going to love walking around and listening to you talk and hearing what you have to say about this community. The community that I found, as I told you during worship, is the community known as Wikipedia. Wikipedia, the online encyclopedia. We know Wikipedia, yes? Everyone knows Wikipedia. Fantastic. Wikipedia is magnificent. Wikipedia is incredible. It is the best thing since sliced bread, in my opinion. I absolutely love it. Now, if you want to have arguments about Wikipedia, I will be happy to do that with you, just not right here. I'm a very big advocate of Wikipedia. Let me give you a little bit of information about Wikipedia. Wikipedia did not start out as the game-changing website that it is today. It did not start out that way. It started out actually as a feeder website for another online encyclopedia. That encyclopedia was called Newpedia, N-U-pedia, Newpedia. The goal of Newpedia was to be a free online encyclopedia, just like Wikipedia, free online encyclopedia. The difference between Wikipedia and Newpedia is that Newpedia wanted to have experts writing their articles. Proven experts in their field, credentialed, peer-reviewed, the whole 9 yards writing their... but it was going to be free and it was going to be open, and that is laudable, all right? That is fantastic. But here's the problem. In the first year of Newpedia's existence, they only published 12 articles. Right, that's laughable. 12 articles, that is ridiculous. And so they thought to themselves, there's got to be a better way to get this going. Well, one of the founders, there is Jimmy Wales and Larry Sanger. Larry Sanger came up with this great idea. There is a kind of software called wiki software. Wiki is a Hawaiian word that means quick. Wiki software is collaborative Word document editing, basically. Right? Imagine that you could open up a Word document, or those of you who use Google Docs, you can get on there and everybody can edit all at the same time. That's what a wiki is. Everybody can edit all at the same time. It's very quick, it's very intuitive, it's very easy, it is not complicated, it does not require a seminary degree. I'm sorry. It does not. It does not require a degree in computer science. Those of you who caught that, that's fun, isn't it? I like being a little snarky. It does not require any special training. It's easy to do. So, Wikipedia was started January 15th of 2001. That's when it was started. By February 12th, within 1 month, there were 1,000 articles. Now, we don't know how great they were, right? We don't know if they were in MLA style like they needed, right? We don't know if they were matching a style sheet, but there were 1,000 substantial articles. By September 1st of that year, there were 10,000 articles. By January 15th of 2002, on his first birthday, 20,000 articles. And by August 1st, basically 18 months, at its 18-month birthday, 40,000 articles. Now, what is going on? What is going on? It's because Wikipedia understands, Wikipedia's motto is making the sum of all human knowledge accessible to everyone. Wikipedia understands that the sum of all human knowledge has to come from somewhere. So where does it come from? It comes from everyone. They made it open. They made it easy for people to get in and start articles. Again, we don't know how great they were, right? Some people have really good content, but they're horrible at writing, right? I've got a 13-year-old, brilliant. His grammar is awful, right? So we don't know how great these articles are, but what we do know is that by 18 months, there were 40,000 of them. It took after 1 year, Nupedia had 12 articles. We could maybe say that by its 18th birthday, or its 18th month birthday, it had 18 articles. Okay? 40,000, 18. I'll take 40,000. Thank you very much. And this is you can see where the problem started to come. The editors of Nupedia and the editors of Wikipedia started to kind of get like this. Because the editors of Nupedia decided, okay, well, we'll now take these and we'll clean them up. We'll take these and we'll make them real articles. Are you kidding me? These are good. These are good articles. We like these articles. So as a result, there was a split. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too much, but you can kind of see how that might happen in churches, right? We start something for the kids, right? Maybe we have that other worship service, or maybe we do that Bible study in a bar, and we naturally expect that those folks are going to grow up and they're going to come sit in our sanctuaries and sing out of our hymnals like real Christians, right? You can start to see how there might be a little bit, right? Youth Triennium. How many of y'all have experienced Youth Triennium? Acknowledged to have some of the most fantastic worship that our church has ever seen. And yet those kids come home and they ask the questions, why can't every Sunday worship be at least something like the worship of Youth Triennium? There's automatically a little bit of a rub. Don't hear me wrong. I think our worship is fantastic. Don't hear me wrong. What I'm saying is that our different experiences and the way that we engage in life naturally bring us at odds with one another. Right? Birds of a feather flock together. That's just the fact. And so we have to negotiate some of it. But you can see how with Nupedia and Wikipedia, it was a little odd. So Wikipedia split off. Wikipedia split off and has become the website that we all know and some of us, most of us, love today. Okay? Wikipedia is guided by some principles, however. There are 5 principles, and I want to give them to you very quickly before I release you into the wild to go talk to one another. 5 principles of Wikipedia. Wikipedia doesn't have it does not have a book of order. I don't even know that it has a manual of operations. It has what it calls the 5 pillars of Wikipedia. And if you would go to Wikipedia and search the 5 pillars of Wikipedia, you can find them. Make sure and search 5 pillars of Wikipedia. Otherwise, you'll get the 5 pillars of Islam, and that's not what you're looking for. I think they're fine, but in this case, that is not what you are looking for. So what I want to do is I want to offer you these 5 pillars of Wikipedia, give you some groundwork, give you some foundational language that you can talk with one another over, that you can discuss. And again, you can go to Wikipedia, you can search for these things. There are articles on each one of these pillars, and you can find them. Here is the first pillar of Wikipedia. Wikipedia is an encyclopedia. End of discussion. Wikipedia is an encyclopedia. Here's what it says about itself. Wikipedia is an online encyclopedia, and as a means to that end, an online community of people interested in building a high-quality encyclopedia in a spirit of mutual respect. Wikipedia incorporates elements of general and specialized encyclopedias, almanacs, and gazetteers. Wikipedia is not a soapbox. It is not an advertising platform. It is not a vanity press. It is not an experiment in anarchy or in democracy. It is not an indiscriminate collection of information. It is not a web directory. Wikipedia is not a dictionary. It is not a newspaper. It is not a collection of source documents. That kind of content should be distributed instead to Wikipedia's sister projects. I find that very interesting that Wikipedia not only says, here's what we are, but here's what we aren't. Here's what we are, and here is what we are. They are very clear. I got to be honest, I was kind of shocked to find that the Wikipedia's self-understanding was that narrow. I just assumed Wikipedia, right? It's everything. No, it's not. It's not everything. It is an online encyclopedia, and as a means to that end, a community working together in mutual respect. That does a couple of things in my brain, and I would hope that this would be something that you would talk about. One, when you are that clear about your purpose, when you are that clear about why you exist, that is a beneficial thing. Because it allows you to resist something called mission creep. Do we know the term mission creep? Mission creep, that idea that here is our mission, but this is also kind of good, and that's also kind of good, and you kind of creep away from your mission. It allows you to say, this is what we are about, this is what we are doing. When I was serving the congregation in Liberty, we would have conversations all the time that usually involved me asking some form of this question. First, I would say, that is a great idea. However, why should we be the ones to do that? Why couldn't we let Rotary do that? They are already doing that. Why do we need to be the ones to do that? I would ask them, what is unique about us? As the people God has gathered in Liberty, Missouri to be Presbyterian, what is unique about us? What should we be doing? Why did God gather us? I would encourage you to think about the nature of the Presbyterian. What is the purpose of the Presbyterian? What is the purpose of your congregation? I was fortunate last weekend to be with the officers of First Church in Lawrence, and I told them, I said, I would encourage you to think about what is the purpose of First Presbyterian Church? And if that purpose sounds like it could be every other church's purpose, scrap it and start again. What is your purpose? Why has God called you together? I mean, as a big church, we know why God has called us together, right? It's called the 6 great ends of the church, right? We have been called together for the proclamation of the gospel for the salvation of humankind, the promotion of social righteousness, the preservation of the truth, the maintenance of divine worship, right? The shelter, nurture, and spiritual fellowship of the children of God. We know this, but why your particular congregation? Why the Presbytery of Northern Kansas? Why has God called you together? The first thing that we have to do is we have to figure out why the heck we even exist. I think that's the big problem in the Presbyterian Church right now, frankly. It's not that we don't have creative leaders and creative ideas. It's not that we don't have servant leaders. It's that we don't know what the heck we're doing. We don't know why we exist.
Eat, drink, and be merry.
Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. We don't know why we exist. Do we know why we exist? One interesting piece is that there are some things we're going to have to do in order to accomplish our goal. Remember, Wikipedia said we are an online encyclopedia, and as a means to that goal, we are a community of mutual support, mutual respect. I heard Jimmy Wales, one of the 2 founders, give a talk one time, and he said, Wikipedia understands that if it's going to be an online encyclopedia, hoping to give the sum of all human knowledge to everyone, we need to make sure that everyone has access to that. As a result, the Wikipedia Foundation does a lot of work with making sure that disadvantaged areas have access to the internet. They're trying to conquer the digital divide. Now, is that building an encyclopedia? No, but it is part and parcel of building an encyclopedia. So when we discover what it is that God wants of us, why we have been called together, what are those things that are part and parcel? So can you see the tension there between mission creep and understanding what is part and parcel of what is required of us? I mean, I said this to the search committee at the Synod when they were interviewing folks for the call that I have. If we are going to be a virtual Synod, do you know what that means? We need to make sure that everyone has access to that. Part and parcel of what the Synod does is it has to be thinking about the digital divide. It has to, right? And so we're in the process of trying to think about what does that mean. We're taking baby steps at this point, but we're in that process. So, first pillar of Wikipedia. Wikipedia is an encyclopedia. Second pillar of Wikipedia. Wikipedia has a neutral point of view. Wikipedia has a neutral point of view. Here is what Wikipedia says about itself. Wikipedia has a neutral point of view. We strive for articles that advocate no single point of view. Sometimes this requires representing multiple points of view, presenting each point of view accurately and in context, and not presenting any point of view as the truth or the best view. All articles must strive for verifiable accuracy. Unreferenced material may be removed, so please provide references. Editors' personal experiences, interpretations, and opinions do not belong here. This means citing verifiable, authoritative sources, especially on controversial topics and when the subject is a living person. When a conflict arises over neutrality, please discuss the details on the talk page. They've got a separate page where you can talk about that article, basically have a discussion there, and follow dispute resolution. Wikipedia has a neutral point of view. One of the great joys of my life right now, even though I am glad to say I only have 6 months left, is that I get to serve as the vice moderator of the 219th General Assembly. That means that very often, in fact, it'll commence again on Tuesday, I drive to Kansas City International Airport and I get on an airplane and I fly someplace. And I spend most of the week there and then I come home. I have to tell you, I am very grateful that when I step on that plane and I sit down in my seat and I look up into the cockpit and I see the pilot, I'm very glad that she is not devising her own formulas for thrust and lift. I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful that she went to school and that she got an A. I'm glad that she re-ups her certification often. I'm glad that she is not devising her own theories of gravity, right? Or formulas for thrust and lift, because that means I get to get where I'm going and I get to come home to my family safely. I don't know about you, but there are some things in life I don't want you messing with. Gravity is one of them. It's not the fall that kills you. It's the sudden stop at the end. Okay? Right? Gravity is good. Now, can we prove gravity? No. Like, we can't prove any of this stuff. If you ask a real high-level scientist, they'll tell you, we can't prove any of this stuff. But we can repeat it over and over and over again. It's the closest thing that we've got to provable stuff. It is verifiable, in the words of Wikipedia. On the other hand, so I want to acknowledge why people get nervous about Wikipedia is that they're not interested in the truth or the best view. There are some things like gravity that we just don't want you messing with, right? Thrust and lift, we don't want you messing with that. On the other hand, and folks from Lawrence, you don't get to talk. On the other hand, I just did this with them. Can somebody spell for me, or anybody who's read the book, can somebody spell for me the name of the city Kiev? How do you spell Kiev? K-I-E-V. You are absolutely correct, except that you're wrong. The way you spell Kiev is K-Y-I-V. K-I-E-V, K-Y-I-V. For so long, right, we spelled Kiev K-I-E-V, and we were right. And we've got a lot of reasons why we are right. But in the 90s, there was a Ukrainian nationalist movement. That just kind of makes me giggle to think about a Ukrainian nationalist movement. There was a Ukrainian nationalist movement. Apparently, it's not terribly funny, and I shouldn't make jokes, because these are folks who discovered that their heritage had been done away with, right? We understand this, right? Europeans did the same thing to the Native Americans. Their heritage had been done away with, and they rediscovered who they were as a people. And they realized that their language had been westernized, bastardized. They realized that who they were had been shoved down and eradicated. And they came back with force, and by all accounts, it was a beautiful thing to behold. But then you get on Wikipedia, and you see that the name of their city, Kiev, is spelled the way that the Westerners spell it. They said, no, that's not the way you spell Kiev. You spell Kiev K-Y-I-V, and everybody else would say, no, but we've always spelled it K-I-E-V. That's the way we've always done it. We've always spelled Kiev K-I-E-V. Who's right? On both sides, they have verifiable sources for why they are correct. They have verifiable sources for why we should do this one way or the other. Which one's right? Which one goes on Wikipedia? They both do. If you go to the article about this city, you will see that it says Kiev or Kiev, spelled both ways. Because Wikipedia holds a neutral point of view. There is a catchphrase in Wikipedia, verifiability, not truth. Verifiability, not truth. What we are about is we are making sure that the information that we have is as verifiable as possible. We're not going to pretend that we know the truth, but we are going to ascertain as closely as possible what is good, verifiable information. Sisters and brothers in Christ, I don't know the truth about God, and neither do you. However, when we get together and when we study our long tradition, we can find things that have been verifiable to lead to an abundant life. Do I know what Jesus was up to? I really don't. The only thing that I can say for certain, like gravity or thrust and lift, the only thing I can say for certain is Jesus Christ is Lord. That's it. That's the only thing I know how to say for certain. Everything else in my mind is like Kiev and Kiev. Everything else in our Christian faith is like that, in my opinion. Jesus Christ is the only thing that functions like gravity. That's the only constantly repeatable, unmovable thing in my mind. I don't know the truth, and neither do you. However, we can say, so folks like us, Presbyterians, open Christians, we are never going to say, believe this or you're going to go to hell. That's not the way we operate. What we say is, if you want to live an abundant life, here are the things that we have discovered in many times and in many places will get you a little bit closer to the abundant life. That may change tomorrow. There may be something else that we discover tomorrow. But for this moment, here it is. So the question that I'll be asking you to consider at small groups is, what does that do to our churches? What does that do to church if we don't believe ourselves to have the truth? Except for Jesus is Lord. But that aside, what do we do if we acknowledge that we have to have multiple points of view? Not only theological, but also spiritual practice. Also church structure. What does that do to us? How do we even function? How do we even operate? Wikipedia has a neutral point of view. Do you have a question of clarification?
Well, I have to say, what does that do with the preservation of the truth?
Exactly. I mean, that's huge, right? Yeah, what does truth mean, and how do we even then preserve it? My answer is Jesus Christ is Lord. That's the only truth I know. So that's about the only thing I'm willing to preserve. Number 3. This is the one that always, I think, when people think about Wikipedia, this is the one that raises their hackles. You would think it was neutral point of view. I don't think so. I think it's this one. Wikipedia is free content. Wikipedia is free content. Oh, I love this one. Let me read to you what it says. Oh, it's the last phrase. Wait for it. Beautiful. Wikipedia is free content that anyone can edit and distribute. You see the freedom is in gratis, right? Give it away. Respect copyright laws. This isn't anarchy. Okay? Verifiable. Respect your copyright laws. But since all of your contributions are freely licensed to the public, no editor owns any article. All of your contributions can and will be mercilessly edited and redistributed. I know, merciless. God of mercy, pshaw. I love that. You got to know from the moment you log on to Wikipedia, you got to know from the moment you press the edit button, you have to know that some young whippersnapper is going to come along behind you and change it. You got to know that. You got to know that nobody cares that they're going to hurt your feelings. They're going to change it. Okay? You got to know this. I know this intimately. As of probably April, I will have spent 5 to 6 years of my life on this topic of open source theory and church. And how do you put those things together? I have thought about and synthesized and read, etc., etc., etc. 5 years of my life. Some people could say, and some people do say, that I am the world's leading expert on open source Christianity. It's not saying much, but hey, right? I am the world's leading expert. One of the things that I did as I was writing the book is I was committed to these open source principles. I would write a draft of a chapter and I would put it on my website and ask people to go at it. Help me make it better. I mean, because really that's the whole point of this thing, right? More heads are better than one. If I got Chris looking at it, fantastic, right? More heads are better than one. Wouldn't you know, I spent 5 years of my life on this. Some jerk. I mean, he hadn't thought about it for like 10 minutes. Well, why don't you do this? Oh, I was angry. I was so angry. This is my baby. I'm the expert. This is my baby. But he made it better. Mercilessly. I mean, and it happened over and over and over. I intimately know what this feels like to have your work taken and mercilessly edited. In the words of popular musicians right now, they remixed my work, right? They have taken it and they made it, frankly, better. They made it better. What is that going to do to our church if we understand that our church is a place where you can walk in and mercilessly edit? Whoa. Just to bring this home for you, here's what I'd like for you to do. You don't have to do this. No's a good answer. I would love for you to think with me about minutes for a second. Because particularly in the Presbyterian church, when we say, can we do X, Y, or Z, the answer is always, well, what do the minutes say? Right? For a council of our church, the minutes are as close as we have to a recent revelation of God as we got. I mean, I say that tongue-in-cheek, but right, this is serious, right? A group of people said, here's what we understand God to be calling us to do, and we wrote it down. Right? After we approve minutes, we should say the word of the Lord, thanks be to God, because that is as close to the word of the Lord as we can get at this moment. And we have a tendency to record everything. Don't we? Everything. So here's what I want you to do. If you're willing to, I'd like for you to close your eyes, and I'd like to read to you just a small portion of my book. I know that's, kind of self-aggrandizing, but I spent a lot of time on these words. So say them correctly. So think with me about minutes for a second. What do you think about when you think about a group physically recording its minutes? I bet all of us good Presbyterians here think about a beautiful and meticulously kept book. It's bound in red leather with gold embossed lettering that you bought from Cokesbury. The volume contains the record of the church's history on thick archival paper. The kind of paper that soaks up ink really well. Now, while most of the recent entries were generated with a laser printer, as you go back throughout the decades, you'll find typewritten pages before discovering page after page of notes written in the most beautiful penmanship you have ever seen. I don't know about you, but when I look at those early pages, I'm struck not only by their content, but also by their beauty. The fact that some faithful soul sat down month after month and wrote those out by hand. Now, if you're the sentimental type, you might even shed a small tear and thank God for that clerk, commenting how you could never handwrite minutes for that long before your fingers started to cramp. Do you see that book? Do you see it? Isn't it gorgeous? Here's the thing about those handwritten notes. They're perfect. And I don't say that tongue-in-cheek. They are perfect. They are an exact recreation of what that body decided in exact language. And I think that they're that way for one very particular reason. Think about if you were the one who had to write those notes, and then you walked through those minutes, and then you walked in and presented them to the body and asked for them to be approved. And some jerk stood up and said, I move that we amend this line to say this. And you had to take your fountain pen and cross out a line. Oh. Redo the whole thing. You read the whole thing. Right. I mean, this is insulting, right? Right? Because you worked hard on that, right? This is what the communion So when we say, can we do X, Y, and Z? When we say, what do the minutes say? We mean it. We mean it. Now, think about the way that we take notes now. Those of you, some of you got a computer open, I'm sure. Think about the way that we take notes now. Right, you write a line. Oh, that's not what he said. Delete. Do we know what that said? No, we don't. When I wrote my book, I deleted a lot of lines and I replaced them with others. Do you know what those things said? I don't even remember what those things said. It doesn't matter to me. The history of my text doesn't matter to me. Only what matters is what the text is right now. That's what matters. What is it going to do to church if we allow people to walk in the door and mercilessly edit what we're doing? Are we going to be so, I'll say, brash, arrogant, to think that we've been doing this for years, therefore this is the way we should do it? Or are we going to allow that young whippersnapper who hadn't thought about this for more than 10 minutes to come in and do things? What does it mean if we do that? Because I got to tell you, we put up a lot of roadblocks to that kind of stuff, don't we? Here's a humorous example. At the Church of Liberty, there in the fellowship hall, there is a sign that shows you exactly where the table should go and how many chairs to put around it. It's awesome. It is magnificent. But I wouldn't change that because right below it, it says, violators will be beaten. I mean, it's funny, and they mean it to be funny, but nobody ever changes it. Because who wants to be beaten? I don't, and I was the pastor. Oh, it's crazy. I once came in and moved the communion table, like just a little bit. Like, not a week later, it was moved right back. Right? You don't touch it. It's Jesus' furniture, not yours. Right? Number 4. You all are good sports. What time is it? It's 11:36. Okay, good. These last two, I don't think they take a lot of time for me, but I'm going to be very interested to hear what you all have to say around your small group table. So for those of you who are anxious and watching watches, maybe 10 more minutes here. You all are very gracious for sitting in pews and listening. I really appreciate it. Number 4, Wikipedians should behave in a civil and respectful manner. Does this have anything to say to the church? Okay, Wikipedians should behave in a civil and respectful manner. Respect and be polite to your fellow Wikipedians, even when you disagree. Apply Wikipedia edit, avoid personal attacks, find consensus, avoid edit wars. Do you know what an edit war is, or a flame war, right? I change it, you change it back, I change it, you change it back. Avoid all that kind of stuff. And remember that, at least at the time that I wrote this book, and remember there are 3,393,351 articles on the English Wikipedia alone to work on and discuss. So act in good faith. Don't disrupt Wikipedia to make a point. Assume good faith on the part of others. Be open and welcoming. Wikipedians should behave in a civil and respectful manner. This is what we say. Our Book of Order says this. We don't assume that this thing works without trust and love. Right? That is an assumption that we make going in. If you don't trust the people that you're working with, please leave. I mean, I don't know how more clearly to say that. If you don't trust the people that you work with, you can either A, figure out how to trust them, or please go somewhere else. Don't disrupt Wikipedia. Don't disrupt WikiChurch. Okay? We've got a lot of stuff here. Don't disrupt it just to make a point. Wikipedia has over 3 million articles on the English Wikipedia alone to work on and to edit, not to mention all the other ones. This reminds me of that 1925 sermon by Henry Emerson Fosdick, Shall the Fundamentalists Win? Have you all heard this sermon? Have you read this sermon? Powerful sermon. Fosdick spent a lot of time going through all the theological things that are dividing Christians at the time, and if you read it, you would think it was written yesterday. Honestly, I'm not being facetious. You would think it was written yesterday. I preached it in Liberty one time, and everybody's like, wow, when did you write that? Like 2 years ago? I was like, no, 1925. But at the end of Shall the Fundamentalists Win, here's what Fosdick says. Fosdick basically, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't have it memorized. Fosdick basically says, there are wars going on, people are dying, There is rampant poverty. Children have no food. And we're going to spend time arguing about this stupid stuff? Really? Sisters and brothers, there are wars going on. There is rampant poverty. Children have no food to eat. And we're going to argue about some of this stuff? Are you kidding me? I'm ashamed of us most of the time. I'm ashamed of myself. I get drug into that more than you do, probably. Wikipedians, Christians, behave in a civil and respectful manner. They will know you are my disciples because of your minutes, because of love. I'm sorry, because you love me. I'm sorry. Happens to me all. You become a clerk and it just happens, right? Right. When I told my clerk in Liberty that I was becoming a clerk, do you know what she said? She didn't say anything. She was laughing too hard. I always looked at her and I said, listen, I'll take care of the book. You take care of the books. We'll be fine. Number 5, and then I'm going to let you go. I love Kansans. Can I just say that right now? I get you and your humor, and you get me and my humor. I went to Eastern Kentucky. Man. They are some of the warmest people. I mean, I swear they are. And sweet tea, we need to discover sweet tea, y'all. Yes. I love being in a place where they say, I would like tea, and they assume you mean it's sweet. They are the warmest people, but I'm telling you, once the gavel falls, it's like I couldn't get them to smile at all. And this is my best stuff. So I hope this video never gets shown. Because you know what they would say? Bless his heart. Here's number 5. Wikipedia has no firm rules. I know, that scares the dickens out of us. Wikipedia does not have any firm rules besides the 5 general principles listed here. Be bold in updating articles and do not worry about making mistakes. Your efforts do not need to be perfect. Prior versions are saved, so no damage is irreparable. However, please don't vandalize Wikipedia, is what it says. Be bold. If you think you can make this puppy better, break all the rules and do something. If you think you got a good idea, break the rules and do it. Again, this is not unique to Wikipedia or open source culture. This is Christian speak right here. What does Luther say? Sin and sin boldly. There is nothing we can't do anything about this. Thomas Merton used to say, God, I don't know what you want. I don't even know how to please you. But I think that my desire to please you pleases you. Right? I rest on that. I do not know how to do what God is expecting of me. All I want to do is please God. All you want to do is please God. And I hope that our desire to please God, I count on the fact that our desire to please God pleases God. No damage is irreparable. If it doesn't work, we have saved. We have our minutes, for crying out loud. If it doesn't work, we go back to the last version that did work. And we do it. And then we allow the next rogue to go rogue and try to make it better again. It's all about trying to make it work as best as we possibly can. Are we willing to do that in the church? Are we willing to completely change the way that we do things because we have an idea that another verifiable source has come along and that might allow our people in this place to glimpse the abundant life just a little bit more? Are we willing to do that? Or are we so scared that we're going to look like fools that we just keep perpetuating the same thing we've done since 1816, 1750? Are we willing to go along? And part of the reason why there are no firm rules is because we don't want people to do stupid things. right? That's the other piece of this that I really like. One story the Wikipedians tell themselves is the story of the kid who stuck beans up his nose. It was a good mom, a very good mom. Do you all know the children's books by Tommy De Miola? Stregonona, all those books? That's what I have in my mind when I think about this story, is the Stregonona stories. So Stregonona was going to the market, and she had her grandson there. And this grandson was a very rambunctious, we shall say, child. And when she had gone to the market previously, he had done many, many things. He would tip the cows, he would fall in the well, right? You get the idea, spoil all of this. So as she's leaving, she wanted to be good Stregonona, and she would say, all right, I'm going to the market. And I want you to tip the cows, and she'd go through the whole things. But trying to be, the good caretaker that she was trying to think ahead, right? And she said, oh, and by the way, don't put beans up your nose. Well, the boy had never put beans up his nose before. But the moment Stregonona walked out, the boy shoved beans up his nose. Right? A lot of times, we are just solutions in search of a problem. Think about your session meetings. Think about your Presbytery meetings, right? A lot of times, we are solutions in search of a problem. There is no reason for us to pass that. What's the point? I mean, why? Is anybody doing that? No. Well, we want to make sure that nobody does it. We are supposed to assume that this thing works in trust and love. What are we doing? You see what I'm saying? People who trust and love each other are going to get hurt. This is the final thing I want to say to you. People who trust and love each other are going to get hurt. Richard Rohr, the great Franciscan theologian from said, when he formed the New Jerusalem community in Cincinnati, they put 70 times 7 on the door. He said, because I want people to remember that even people of good intentions hurt one another. Even people of good intentions screw this thing up. That's who we are. Sin and sin boldly. That's who we are. But this thing works with trust and love. This thing works when we have multiple points of view. This thing works when we allow people to be who they are and operate in an air of mutual respect. Before you go, I just want to say again, thank you so much for allowing me to be here and welcoming me in. Thank you. I am proud to serve you, and I am proud to have come from you. You all are, honey, I'm home. You all are great. You're wonderful. So I'll be here a little bit into the afternoon, and then I've got a 3.5 hour drive back to Liberty, so I'm going to cut out a little early before the end of the docket. But please feel free to find me at lunch and during breaks, and I would love to speak with you. All right. Thank you. Peace be with you. Oh, I guess.
Landon, I just want to say, bless your heart.
Chris was the chair of the CPM when I was coming through. She has blessed my heart a lot.
We're going to break now to our groups, and oh, thank you. Melanie's put the assignments. You have a number.